All right, y'all. In today's video, we're getting to centers, ranking every starting center in the Eastern Conference here on this tier list. As per normal, we got our 4 standard tiers that I've been using, as well as each center ranked from 1 seed to 15 seed to go through and rank in this video. And a lot of good centers. The center position is a much easier to identify position than a lot of other positions where it's like, maybe this guy's their small forward or power forward. Or center position, you don't really have that issue for the most part with any of these guys. So I felt like this was an easy list to put together, and I'm excited to rank these guys. We're going to start with Jarrett Allen, who is absolutely in that stud tier. Dude is having a great year, deserves, in all honesty, to have a serious argument at an all-star team. The Cavs are elite. Jarrett Allen has been a big part of it. Yes, 14 and 10 on paper doesn't sound amazing, but he's an elite rim protector. He's unbelievably efficient on the interior, a high-level, high-effort offensive rebounder, a just high-effort big in general, good, versatile defensive big man, solid rim protector, very athletic, high energy, high effort, just the type of player that you want on your team. Even if his numbers aren't substantially better than the last couple of years, the Cavs have been awesome. Jarrett Allen has been a big part why he may be the 4th best player on that team, but he plays his role at an incredibly high level, and I have no issues whatsoever putting him in stud. In fact, I don't think there's any argument that he goes any lower than that, despite numbers that on the surface don't look particularly unbelievable besides the efficiency. Kristaps Porzingis, despite the missed games this year, I'm also going to put him in that stud tier. Dude is still a great player. He was an X factor in a lot of ways last year for the championship run, despite the fact that they didn't really need him as much as I thought they would. But either way, he's averaging kind of a down year in all honesty. Only 18 and a half a game so far. He's only played in 17 games. Struggles obviously to stay healthy. That's been a clear issue for him for his entire career, and especially these last few seasons. With that being said, though, I mean, he's still a very high level 3-point shooter, up to 37% from 3 on the year. It's a 7'2", 7'3" big who's become a much better rim protector, is an elite level floor spacer, a guy who he's called the unicorn for the reason. He's one of the most unique players in basketball and still a highly skilled, highly valuable member of a very good Celtics team, despite their struggles recently. I have no issues whatsoever with KP and stud. Karl-Anthony Towns, you are going in best of the best. He is having the best season arguably of his career, especially when you consider the amount of improvement, not just improvement, but how well the Knicks have played as a whole this season. And I think that's a big part of this. Is Cat is averaging, I mean, he's leading the league in rebounding. He's at almost 14 rebounds a game, which is pretty absurd. He's having such an incredible year as a rebounder, but not only that, he's averaging 25 a game. He's basically close to his career high in scoring. He's shooting 45% from 3, which is berserk. I mean, the dude is having an incredible season across the board. He's efficient finishing at the rim. In fact, he's at a career high inside the arc as well. Like, the dude is just having an unbelievable year. He's legitimately a dark horse MVP candidate. If it wasn't for guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, I think there would be a legitimate argument for Karl-Anthony Towns as an MVP. He's been that good, and for me, there's just no doubt anymore. Last season, would he have been best of the best? Probably not. This year, absolutely. Brook Lopez plays his role and is very valuable at it. He's a floor spacer and a rim protector. That's about it. That's pretty much the extent of Brook's role at this point in his career, but he's a 37% 3-point shooter, still averaging 12 and a half a game. Now, in all honesty, he's not the rebounder or defender overall that, in my opinion, a guy like Jarrett Allen is, but he is a high-level rim protector, and he's a high-level catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter still, especially for a 7-foot big. He's not an elite rebounder at this point in his career. He's not particularly athletic. He's not a guy who was ever a dominant rebounder, but at this point in his career, I mean, it's pretty remarkable how Brook Lopez basically went from a total non-shooter to a 5 threes a game, 35% 3-point shooter, and ever since has been pretty much a very good shooting big for the rest of his career. And he did that halfway through his career. Remarkable. Brook Lopez, his career has been remarkable. It's the type of player that when he's retired, I think people should go back and do a retrospective on, because really shout out to Brook. With that being said, I just can't put him higher than me at this point in his career, excuse me. Goga Bitadze, one of the better defensive bigs in all of basketball, also one of the more underrated big men in basketball, but he is only averaging 9.6 and 8 rebounds a game, and he was brought into the league as a guy who you expected to be a 3-point shooter. He's really not that. He's been 10% from the 3-point line this year. That's gross. But he does everything else well. He's a very high level finisher. He's 66% from inside the arc this year. And he is a legit double-double type guy when he plays big minutes. This is the biggest role he's ever had, but he's made very good use of it. He's a high level rim protector as well. I actually really like Goga. I think he's a very underrated player. And I think there, again, no reason to me that he can't be a tier above the bottom at least. Having another really solid year. This feels like a list where I'm gonna have a tough time honestly putting anybody in that bottom tier. We might only have one or two guys in the bottom tier because I really like these centers. And Miles Turner, look, he's 15-7, 38.5% from three. A real high-level floor spacer, a high-level shot blocker as well. Now, outside of the shot blocking, I think he's a little bit overrated defensively, in my opinion, but he's not a bad defensive big by any means. And he is a great pick and pop shooter, having a career year shooting the three on almost 5 attempts a game at 38.5%. That's high-level elite efficiency. Not quite as efficient inside the arc this year as he has been the last few years, but still not too terrible. Overall, Miles Turner, he's a good defensive big. He's a great floor spacer. He's an underrated player as a whole, and he's a guy who easily, honestly, could make an argument for stud. And actually, I think I'm going to. We might just have a very high up list on this one, but I can't not put Miles Turner in that stud tier with how well he shot the three. I think he's a valuable player. Clint Capela. I mean, he's averaging 9.5 and 9, honestly, 57% from the field. He's, in my opinion, at this point in his career, a worse Goga Bitadze. Now, he's a little bit more of a lob threat probably than Goga is, but as a whole, I think he's a little bit overrated. In all honesty, he's just not quite the athlete he once was. He's not quite the defender he once was. He's not an elite level rim protector. I'm actually going to put Clint Capela in the lowest tier just because I feel like everybody above him on this list so far is a better player than Capela, and I think I at least have to have a couple guys in that lowest tier. I still think Capela is a useful player, and I think he can still be a center on a winning team, but the center position in the East is just really solid, like it really is. So for me, got to put Capela in that lowest tier, unfortunately. Bam Adebayo has had a really disappointing offensive season outside of his three-point shooting, which has, I mean, at least to start the season, it showed real signs of progress. The problem is he's shooting 2.6 a game, but he's only shooting them at 29% at this point. He was much more efficient early in the year when it comes to shooting the three ball, and recently, I mean, he's 49% inside the paint, which is, he was never the most efficient big, but that is a huge step backwards. Only averaging 16 points a game. Offensively, his game has not really ever developed to the point I think people thought it might, and defensively, he's obviously a very good big, but he can be a little undersized. Rebounding wise, 9.6 a game ain't bad, but this has been a down year for Adebayo. I still think the defensive value he provides is enough to keep him in that stud tier, but he's slipping for sure. And I mean, I don't think he's that far above guys like Lopez and Goga Bitadze this year. That's the honest truth. I just have not been that impressed. Jalen Duren. I feel like he can be a little soft defensively. He reminds me a little bit too much of Andre Drummond sometimes. Feels like the numbers are a little bit empty, and the numbers really aren't that great. 9.5, 9.5, 68% from the field though. Can't argue with that. I mean, the efficiency in the paint has been very, very good. Do feel like he's a little empty numbers sometimes, I will say, but again, his numbers have gone down this year in less minutes per game compared to last season where he had a bigger role on a worse team. But he's not a great shot blocker. He's not an elite level rim protector across the board, in my opinion. I feel like he's been better this year than he was the last couple. I don't know if I'm ready to put him up above the lowest tier. It's an argument. I might move him up, but I think I'm leaving him where he is right now. I feel like we got too many stud tier bigs, but Nikola Vucevic is having one of the best seasons of his career, and I mean, truly deserves it. I know he plays for the Bulls. He's shooting 42% from three, and he's been efficient from inside the arc as well. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, come on. That's a 20 and 10 big who's shooting the three ball lights out and has been elite efficiency wise inside the arc as well. His most efficient season inside the arc in his career too. Shout out to Nikola Vucevic having the best season of his career at 34 years old. That is pretty remarkable stuff. Vucevic deserves a ton of credit for the year he's having, and he absolutely deserves to go in that stud tier. Joel Embiid, I know you have been injured all season. He still goes in the highest tier because when he's healthy, he is one of the better players in basketball. He won an MVP and deservedly so a couple seasons ago. I'll never take that away from him. Averaging 24.5, 8 rebounds, 3.8 assists, but again, only 13 games. The rebounding has been down across the board this year. He cannot stay healthy. He's injured again now. I mean, for the last couple seasons, he was 34.7 points a game in 39 games last year. He was insane. Year before that, he wins an MVP averaging 33. Like, these last few years have been absurd. That dude is one of the best players in the world, without a doubt, when he's fully healthy. Problem is, he's never fully healthy anymore, and his numbers have taken a dip this year because of that. Even when he plays, he hasn't been that healthy. I still think he deserves to go in the highest tier, but it is a shame, I think, to watch a guy like Embiid, who is a generational center type guy. I mean, one of the two best centers of our era, absolutely. Really, since Shaquille O'Neal, I think one of the two best centers that we've seen, period. And unfortunately, injuries are hurting his career and some other things as well. So still highest tier, but a little unfortunate the way that Embiid's career is progressing. Nick Claxton, I really actually like Nick Claxton. I think he's the type of guy who I think there are teams that should trade for Clint Claxton, to be honest. Oh, it's just Nick. It's not Nicholas. Okay, it used to be Nicholas. I guess it's just Nick Claxton now. You see, it is Nicholas. But 9.7, 7.5, 53%. He is, I think, a pretty good rim protector. Now, his minutes are down this year, and his shots blocked, again, are also down. His numbers are kind of across the board down. He's less efficient inside the paint than he was a couple years ago. I mean, he was legitimately one of the best interior finishers on all of basketball a couple years ago, and especially in terms of efficiency. I mean, he led the league in field goal percentage and 2-point percentage. But this year hasn't been quite the same. The Nets are terrible, and I think he's an asset still. I think there are teams that could use Nick Claxton. But at the same time, I think I have to go in the lowest tier. He's not a terrible team, and his numbers have gone down. I can't not put him in the lowest tier. Jakob Poeltl. I mean, Jakob Poeltl quietly is like a double-double machine. Dude's averaging 14 or 15 and 10 and a half, 61% overall. He's a non-shooter, but he's aware of it. You know what I mean? And that's fine with me at the end of the day. He's highly efficient inside the paint, pretty much has been his entire career. He's a high-level rebounder. He's been scoring the ball better this year. The Raptors are bad, but I don't think Jakob Poeltl is really the problem. He's been pretty good, and he's played his role, I think, pretty solidly. I don't have a big issue with him. He turns the ball over a little more than I'd like. I will say that if I'm looking for something to criticize. But overall, Poeltl, not a bad call, not a bad player. And, I mean, he's another guy who, if he gets traded to a playoff team, would become really interesting really quickly. Mark Williams. I mean, I think there's real promise for him in Charlotte. Problem is, number one, my brain is completely. My brain is. I just started. What did I just start to type? Mark Williams. That's what I meant to type. My brain just completely farted out. Mark Williams is averaging 14 and 8.5 rebounds a game. I mean, the dude is exceptionally efficient. 66% from inside the paint, again, is really, really high level stuff. Averaging, again, 14 and 8.5. I would like to see him a little closer to double numbers. The rebounding could be a little bit better across the board. But in all honesty, I mean, the numbers themselves are not that far off from a guy like Jared Allen, I mean, who I have a tier above. Not that far off a guy like Bam Adebayo this season, in all honesty. Again, these guys are having good years. All these guys in there are useful players. Some of them on bad teams, sure, in Poeltl and Mark Williams, but very good players nonetheless, and deserve to be on this list in decent spots. Alex Sarr. The way he started the season, I was like, this was a really bad second overall pick. I'm not fully convinced he's going to turn into a high-level NBA player, but I think there is a chance, is what I will say. Is it just going to be Alex Sarr? It is going to be Alex Sarr, not Alexandre. Either way, I mean, he's averaging 11 and 6.5. He's kind of soft. He's not an efficient player. Defensively, there is some promise, though. 1.6 blocks a game. He's got real athletic ability. I think there's promise to him as a player, but he's an inefficient big who tries to shoot a lot of threes, but isn't very efficient at doing it at 32.5%. Now, if he becomes a more efficient shooter as his career progresses, becomes a 35 plus 3% three-point shooter, can bring that 2-point percentage up into the mid 50s instead of the mid 40s, and continue to be a high level shot blocker and some stuff like that, there is a future for him in this league. Absolutely. He's 19 years old. You got to give the guy some time, but rating him as of right now, he is in the lowest tier of center, in my personal opinion. And there you go. I think this is the list. I feel like Jalen Duren and Capela could easily have an argument to be a tier up if you wanted to, but to me, I'm going to leave them where they are, I think. And I think this is a pretty solid list all the way around. So with that being said, let me know what y'all think of the list in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.